there, welcome back. I'm glad you're here. Today we're going to talk all about what happens if you're not as successful after your jumpstart session. I see so many of you online in your jumpstart session looking for answers in your menopausal body. We go over things like hormones, blood sugar control, your habits, and we create a plan just for you. It's always so enlightening to be able to talk to you and kind of figure out some of your struggles and offer strategies for you to get started on so that you can enjoy a body that you enjoy living in. You know, being fluffy and having a little extra weight, that's no fun. It certainly isn't the end of the world, but when you don't feel like you want to feel, then it's time to make a change. So today I wanted to just kind of go over a few tips and tricks that I find recently, in the recent past, from you all that you're struggling with and can't seem to kind of dial in how you want to be eating, how you want to be thinking, and just put into practice some things that actually work. You're not alone. There seem to be trends in how things unfold. And I find that, it's midsummer, it's nice and warm. Actually, it's hot and it makes it hard to focus. Maybe you've been on vacation. Maybe you've been in a different schedule and you forget how important it is to take care of yourself first, and then taking care of everybody else becomes a lot easier. So getting control of your diet and your good maintenance practices or your fat loss practices really boils down to you getting focused. You know what your macros are, you know how to be eating, and if you don't, then just Google. I think on my channel, I do a deep dive into figuring out your macronutrients, which if you don't know macronutrients, it's protein, fats, and carbohydrates. And each one of us has a sweet spot in how many grams of protein, how many grams of carbohydrates, and how many grams of fat we should try to get every day for, targeting fat loss or maintenance. So you need to get back to the drawing board. A lot of times I find that you're just not really being as diligent, or you're not really hitting the mark anymore. And if you have a couple days where maybe you're not on vacation and you can get, back to basics, then you put pen to paper and write down, or, in your app, tally up how many grams of protein that you're eating. How many carbohydrates are you eating? What kind of fat are you getting? It's really important, and I think that's probably the biggest thing once you already, have been successful and maybe backslid just a bit. Revisit that macronutrient calculator for your recipe for success. Another thing that seems to happen is, it's so typical. If we've gained a little bit of fat, if the scale's up 5 or 10 pounds, then we're just going to restrict. We're not going to eat anything. Now, if you do an actual fast, that can be extremely effective. But typically, if you've been on vacation, or you've just gotten a little bit lazy or soft in your resolve, and you've been eating more sugar, drinking more alcohol, just not being careful about how you're feeding yourself, an intermittent fast, a longer 24 to 36 hour fast, is going to be horrible. You're going to feel awful. So I would suggest that maybe you go to eating clean for 3 days. And then you can transfer into a longer fasting period where you're not going to slow down your metabolism, because just restricting your calories and eating next to nothing is typically going to set you up for a big time failure. You're going to be starving, you've got lots of inflammation, and you're just going to seek comfort at some point when your willpower just kind of goes down the drain. I don't recommend it. Before you fast, you want to be kind of in good condition. You want to have nutrients on board, and you don't want to come off of a bender and go into a fasted state. That's not healthy. That's not easy either. And typically you're going to blow it, because if you've been a little bit shaky, well, you're not going to muscle your way back into compliance. You want to make sure you're eating enough. You don't want to starve. And that's right back to, manage your macros. If you're eating your macros, which, if you're new to me, then we're going to say, you figure out how much you want to weigh. And then it's almost like if you want to weigh 125 pounds, you want to get close to 125 grams of protein. Now that might be a little bit high, especially if you're, not real active. But I like to kind of sweet spot it between 80 and 100 grams of protein every day. And that may seem just ridiculous if you're vegetarian or if you just haven't been able to eat much protein. Then I like to substitute in some optimal aminos, which is a supplement. It's an essential amino acid tablet that is equal to 1 tablet equals 3 grams of protein, and it's 99% bioavailable. You can take it in your fasted state, and I've got links down in the description box for a discount. They're affordable and second to none to really providing your body the raw materials of quality protein so that you can rebuild and build lean body mass and muscle all at the same time without overfilling your stomach and feeling like you're overeating. Another thing I always suggest is when you're eating that much protein, more than likely as a menopausal woman, you're going to typically need a digestive enzyme or some hydrochloric acid or something called Swedish bitters, or sometimes just a little bit of apple cider vinegar to just kind of prime the pump and help you break down that protein. We need stomach acid to break down proteins properly. We need stomach acid to break down all the food that we eat properly. And when our food isn't properly broken down, it goes into the small intestine with larger molecules than wanted, and we then have bloating and gas and fermentation that leads to leaky gut. And if you haven't really understood what leaky gut is, well, that's not good. That's where the lining of the small intestine, it has very tight junctions for a reason. We want all the food that we eat to stay inside the intestinal tube. And if there are little tiny cracks or holes, then whole molecules of things that should never be in the body escape. And then the body kicks up an immune response to take care of that foreign invader. Then we start getting inflammation. It's our body's way of protecting ourselves. So we want to make sure that we're chewing our food well, we're eating slowly, we're never eating in our, sympathetic dominant state where we're stressed out, because you can't run from a tiger and digest food at the same time. It doesn't work that way. Really, if you're stressed out, you should fast or really try and settle down and prepare your body to receive nutrients by way of a healthy meal. Another thing that I try and suggest is if you're really struggling with fat loss, if you're not able to be successful when you feel like you're doing everything right, then maybe you want to eliminate dairy. Dairy products, pasteurized dairy products, are a processed food, and that process, pasteurization, has heat involved, meaning the dairy product is heated up and the molecules then are changed, and the body isn't really sure how to handle it. And sometimes if there's a lot of stress, a lot of inflammation, then your body will react negatively to dairy products. I recommend maybe a week or two you avoid dairy, or you only use fermented dairy. Avoid things like cottage cheese and a lot of cheese in general. No milk, maybe you can do heavy cream. Butter usually is okay, but just be mindful that pasteurized dairy could be an inflammatory trigger for you. And if you remove it, you might start seeing some improvement on the scale. And remember, the scale is a very crude and kind of a low grade measure of actual fat loss. I like the DEXA scan, or you take your tape measure and you measure your waist and a few other body parts to see week to week what your progress is. If you're one that, is triggered by the scale, then use a different method to learn how your body responds to your efforts, okay? Now you know that we're going to be trying to eat lower carbohydrate because in the menopausal years, we have less estrogen. Estrogen is that beautiful hormone that allows us to process glucose a lot easier. And unless we're exercising a ton and unless we're super metabolically flexible, then you might really want to exercise a low carb lifestyle. Now, I like to say, use nature's carbs. And when you need something a little starchier because you just feel empty, maybe you're going to do potato or butternut squash or something like chickpea flour or beans and legumes. And just, the portion size matters. You don't want too much and you want to eat those very sparingly to satiety. If you feel empty after a meal, then maybe a couple of bites of pinto beans or, roasted potatoes or sweet potatoes might just be all you need to really settle you down and help you stick to a really clean, low carb, high protein, moderate fat diet that's going to really dial in your success. You also want to tally up your macros because when you know, and we talked about that already, I'll just remind you again, data is important. To know what you're doing on paper and maybe, last week this was the macro tally and then this week your body feels like this, whether it's good or bad, you've got notes, you've got data so that you can kind of revisit and understand how your body's processing, because that's all it is. How do you process food? Are you having a hard time? Do you need to work on some longer extended fasting periods for healing? Because every time you do a 24-hour fast, your digestive tract rebuilds and regroups and really has a nice kind of a reset. You're also going to burn fat for fuel instead of the food that you're eating on a daily basis. I don't want to set you up for failure. But if you can ease into a longer fast 1 day a week, then without too much discomfort, use your electrolytes, use your, be super hydrated and, ease into maybe a 24, 36 hour fast so that you can just see what happens. It kind of gives you a new perspective on how hungry you actually might be or might not be. And you get to enjoy all kinds of benefits from a longer fast. If that's too much to ask, then at least fast 12, I'm going to say 13 to 15 hours most days. Okay? So you've heard me say it a million times. You don't want to snack all day. You need to give your body time to process, especially as a menopausal woman. You're not going to do well if you snack all afternoon or all evening long, okay? So we're going to really kind of shore up and eat in our feeding windows. You're going to eat, whether you eat 3 meals, 2 meals, 1 meal a day, but eat and then stop eating. Okay, tally up your macros, make sure you get plenty of fuel, and when you're not eating and you're in the fasted state, be mindful of how you break your fast because that's almost as important. You don't want to go hog wild after a longer fast and kind of blow it. First of all, you'll be miserable. And second of all, what's the point? If you're going to all the work of a nice long fast, then you want to ease into it by having some protein, having some vegetables. Protein and plants. Just say it again. Protein and plants. That's your typical diet. Sure, you're going to have other things like a sweet treat now and then, but you lay that down in your feeding window. It's not, the 3 o'clock snack because you are bored or just feel like you need something to do. That's important to be mindful about how you're feeding yourself. Meal timing. How much activity are you getting? You've got to move. You know that. And I'll encourage you to do a strength training video or just a strength training class at least 2 to 3 days a week. You've got to get moving. I like to say about 10 to 12,000 steps a day. That's not easy. That's a dedicated walk or something to get you out, get you moving. And if you can't do that, then stand up at your desk or stand up in your house every 45 minutes and do 10 air squats. You'll be shocked at how much, you'll be out of breath for one thing, but you'll be shocked at how good that works in just getting your activity in. So that's a pep talk. That's a lot. That's a real good kind of a reboot in your thinking and your efforts. So you do these things and I promise you'll have success, okay? It's not a quick fix. It's a lifestyle. And there's nothing like having a plan to really focus on so that you don't get all distracted in your day-to-day, okay? Do it because you deserve to do it. Do it because you're worth it. And get happy about the fact that you get to do it. There's so many links down in my description box for the products that I use, the products that I love, the products that help me stay on track. And I invite you to check them out. I'd love for you to ask questions in the comments. I do get questions from you when we chat during our Jumpstart sessions and your follow-ups. So keep those questions coming. I'll try and keep answers coming. And I love that you're here. If you subscribe, that really, really makes my day. And leave a comment. Let me know how you're doing. Is this resonating? If you have a friend that needs to hear this, share it with her. Let's build a community so that we can have all the tools at our disposal and be the best that we can be. I mean, we're not getting any younger. I want you to feel good. Come for the fat loss, stay for the longevity. You'll never be sorry that you did, okay? All right, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.